Welcome, welcome, welcome. It has been a long time, and that's partially my fault, me being, exiled as I am to Hawaii and with time zones and everything else. Not to mention the fact that David Betancourt got to actually be in Puerto Rico for the Super Bowl, and that's a whole different experience that we have to ask him for, like what that was like during the Bad Bunny of it all. But to catch people up, we are Blerds in the Attic, and no, you are not seeing things. We have a guest.
Our
Our
first
guest is Blurred royalty. He is a blurred god. We are blessed to have, beyond, of course, Deva Betancourt, is the wonderful, the illustrious director, producer, writer, all things, Reginald Hudlin. Reggie, as I know him, because his brother's been a friend of mine for forever, and has always been one of my closest mentors, and just so blessed to have him. But just to get the business out of the way, I'm Cheo Hodari Coker,
and I'm David Betancourt.
and together we are Blerds in the Attic. But we're just going to start off. We are freestyling. I mean, it's appropriate that we are loosey goosey doing this jazz style because Reggie, if you know anything about him, beyond being a Harvard graduate, is from East St. Louis, the home of Miles Davis. So it's appropriate that we're doing this jazz style. I guess I'm leading off with the sax, Davis doing drums, or someone's gonna come cut in for a solo so that we can get this thing started. But David, do you want to start, man?
Yeah, man. First, we both have our connection to Reggie. Reggie, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in person since I was literally a kid. I'm not a kid anymore. But I can't help one of my first big stories at the Washington Post as a comic book culture reporter was when it was announced long before a movie was a thing that there was going to be a female Black Panther, and that at the time we didn't know who it was going to be, but it was a very big deal, and it was a part of Reggie's run when he was writing Black Panther. And Reggie was kind enough. I still don't remember how fate brought you to DC that particular day, but he was in the area. He gave me a face-to-face interview in a very fancy hotel that I still haven't forgotten about. And I'm just so appreciative that you're here because what you have meant to Black cinema in so many different forms, comedy, action, whatever, but also your contributions to the comic book universe as well. Any Blurred here already knows what your contributions are. So thank you for joining us here on Blerds in the Attic as our very first guest. This is very cool.
Thank you, David. And look, I want to thank you, man. You having that regular column in the Washington Post was a big deal for comic books, period. And the fact that you supported Black creators like myself was a very, really big deal. And really, really grateful for everything you did with that platform, and that you are continuing the mission on your own platform. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And Cheo, come on, man, you my man. And it's always a joy to talk with you. I mean, so this is great because people get to hear what we do for hours anyway.
Yes.
So
yes, no doubt.
I love that the Blerds are in the attic and not in the basement. That's also good. So I like all that.
Well, the thing behind that is when we started, Cheo was still in Seattle.
Yeah.
And had a very
Yes.
like if MTV had Pimp My Ride, Cheo had Pimp My Attic. His attic was phenomenal. Thing had a kitchen in there and everything. I thought it was actually a flat. I didn't know it was an attic. But at the time, I was doing renovation here at the house in DC, and that's kind of like where the idea for the name came from, because eventually we were, both going to be in our attics. Then obviously Cheo has since moved to Hawaii, so he's kind of got still the same setup, so it still looks like he's in his attic. But those are the secret origins of the Blerds in the Attic name.
And I went from attic to basement for a while, and now we don't have an attic here. It's just one story. But but the trade off when it's not raining is that it's paradise. But the thing is that the name was kind of a play secretly on an Aerosmith song, or actually Aerosmith album, Toys.
Yes.
Which, if you know the hip hop origins, Walk This Way, of course, was sampled from, the song. I mean, the song Walk This Way was sampled from the album Toys in the Attic. And when they made the song, when they recorded it, when Run DMC recorded it, they didn't remember that Aerosmith did the record. They didn't even know who Aerosmith was. And so they kept talking in the studio. They kept calling, yeah, Toys and the Acts come in the studio, because they just knew the album cover that they would just take out of the crate and play that beat from. You know what I'm saying? And they kept calling Aerosmith to their face, Toys in the Attic. And, of course, that song is one of the thing that really blew up hip hop and everything else. But it's a kind of blurry detail of Blerds in the Attic that, and also kind of also a play. The way we also have the end, of course, is a shout out to our mutual friend, Reggie, the late John Singleton, Boys in the Hood, Blerds in the Attic, so all of it is kind of tied. Hip hop is always somewhere in there. Somehow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Always.
it's Blerds N, just N, not I-N.
That's right.
We have a couple of things. I mean, the blur down, amongst the things that we'll be talking about is, the Dune trailer, the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer, the trailer and somewhat controversy, and we'll protect you, Reg, about what's going on with Lantern. And then also some of the Oscar stuff. But one of the things about having you on the show is that because you've produced the Oscars, because you have your incredible documentary, which really people should check out if you have Apple, number one on the call sheet. You have a unique perspective on what an Oscar win means to a career from having talked to virtually everyone, at least from our community, that's won an Oscar. I mean, that's kind of the brilliant thing and also kind of a sad thing that you really could have a restaurant and invite every Black person who won an Oscar. You could actually, there would be room to spare, like in the restaurant. You wouldn't even have to rent out the entire restaurant, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? So we'll get into that. But I think what we'll do is, if David, if you're cool with this, we should just start with Reg and then get to it, the rest of it. Unless, Reg, you want to blur it out with us and talk about some of these other things.
No, let's get to getting.
Yeah, let's start with Reg.
Okay. All right. So, man, okay. Everyone's got an opinion, of course, about One Battle After Another versus Sinners. The way I liken it is I say, look, I'll show my age here. I'm 53 years old. I grew up watching the Lakers versus the Celtics. And the thing was when you got to those championships, even though I'm on the Lakers side and those years that the Celtics won, like I was always kind of curmudgeonly or angry about it, you didn't feel like you got robbed. You just knew that the other team was that good. And that's the thing about, without getting into all the controversy, because everyone's going to have an opinion about who should have won and why. But like in saying that One Battle After Another deserved Best Picture, like I can't argue against it because it was really that close. It was really that tight. That's not what our question is. Our question is, let's talk about Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan being one of the youngest actors to ever to win Best Actor. And let's smoke it clear, it's his brother. To be a young Black actor at his age, is he even 40 yet? I think he might have just turned 40.
I thought he was 39, 40. Yeah, I mean, he's right on the cusp. But yeah, I mean, he's young, he's handsome, he's, got a bunch of box office hits. He's also now a director. Look, it's it's great. And look, there's always someone who's gonna be mad or jealous or whatever of somebody's success. Whatever, man. He's got an Oscar.
Yeah. And so what does that mean now? Okay, this is a shameless plug for your brilliant documentary, number one on the call sheet. So already being number one on the call sheet, that's already a big deal. But now you're number one on the call sheet with an Oscar. Like how, it doesn't necessarily need to be specific to Michael B. Jordan. How does that change someone's ability to negotiate the types of movies you're offered? Does having the Best Actor win change things?
Well, yeah. I think as the business has changed over the decades, I think the significance of an Oscar has changed over the decades. right now we're in this inflection point as to what is the movie business and what are theatrical movies versus a streaming movie versus, oh no, you should just make that a TV show because that won't succeed as a movie. So, I mean, they're bigger forces in play, and an Oscar win is one relatively small factor when you look at all those other things that happen. The bottom line is Sinners was one of the most successful films of the year, commercially and critically. And it was an original story. It was ambitious artistically on every level and succeeded, hence all the Oscars it received. And I think everyone involved in that project should rightfully have their boats rise as a result of their extraordinary achievement. And, of course, for Ryan, for Michael B. Jordan, for Autumn, there's no one in the cast and crew that shouldn't benefit from the extraordinary success of Sinners. And look, when you're up for an award, well, you want to be up for awards, you want to win awards. But whether you ultimately win or not, that's not what lasts. What lasts is the quality of the work as it resonates over time.
Right. And then before I pass the mic or step off the band, stop playing sax so that David can play trumpet. My last question is, there's a viral clip you have. It might have been inadvertently viral, where you were talking about how hard it was when you first proposed having Eddie Murphy as a romantic lead in a movie. And the kind of people, I think, if you look at the comments, were frankly just shocked at the reaction of the studio executive that was just basically not even trying to be obtuse, but said all the different reasons why Eddie couldn't be in a romantic lead. Of course, with Boomerang, which people 30 years later are playing on a weekly basis, is still proving everybody wrong. So now have we finally reached a point where we can say that things have actually changed? Because I don't think anyone's going to begrudge, seeing Michael B. Jordan as a romantic lead opposite of anybody. I don't know if he's ever been called Sexiest Man Alive or anything like that, but the way people react to that Amazon commercial with him, it seems to be like, so are we at a point post-racially where people can just see the universal appeal of a Michael B. Jordan, and does that Oscar shine enhance that? Or are there always going to be people that worry about, okay, if we have him as our lead, it's going to be a quote unquote black movie?
I think that Michael B. as a sex symbol, he passed that place a long, long time ago. I mean, if you go back and, when he was the guest host of Saturday Night Live, so many of the sketches turned on the fact that he has this extraordinary universal sex appeal. And in terms of people's anxiety over interracial romance, actually, I'd go back to Flavor of Love and their spinoffs. Again, when you go back to Harry Belafonte, who was singing with on his special, which he produced and starred in, and he was singing a duet with a white singer, and their hands brushed, and the NBC switchboard got overloaded with people freaking out, right? Cut to Flavor Flav in the pool with Sylvester Stallone's ex-wife, right? And that is a hit TV show. So I would say that journey says that we have transformed as a culture. Look, and Sidney Poitier was an extraordinary sex symbol in his era in the 1960s. So Black people have been sex symbols for a long, long time. Michael B. Jordan is unquestionably in that category as an actor. Now, there are always going to be some people who have backward regressive thinking. But I would say as a bigger point, which is that I know there's some folks in our community who don't want to acknowledge that things are better, right? Because they feel like if you say that, well, you're giving everybody a pass. Like, no. It doesn't mean that things are perfect. It means that things have gotten better. And it's very important to acknowledge things are better because when you say things are better, that says the things we have fought for have succeeded, right? So that's a positive reinforcement for people of all races who have fought to make things better, right? And people who fight need to get rewarded for their efforts, right? And then also let you know, well, what worked and why. So as we continue to fight to make things even better, we can learn from what has worked in the past. So I think it's very healthy to acknowledge, look, when House Party came out, they wouldn't turn off the lights all the way in a theater in Colorado because they thought, well, it's a hip hop movie and there's riots are going to break out if it's dark. So in my lifetime, in my career, we have gone from hip hop being this dangerous animal to like America's music and the world's music. So we win. We have to acknowledge our wins and celebrate our wins.
Also, don't forget, Michael B. I think once Creed happened is when, especially online with the young generations that are very much prevalent on social media, once he really changed his physique for that movie, people started noticing. And let us not forget, Killmonger, "Is this your king?" is the official meme of office work husbands everywhere. You know what I mean? So, I think Mike's been a sex symbol for a minute, but the Oscar is just adding more light to it.
Yeah.
Reg, what was it like for you? Because as a lot of people know from your initial Black Panther run, you collaborated with John Romita Jr., who's one of the big time, big names when it comes to comic book artists in the comic book industry. Now, I know from previously chatting with you how much those Marvel comics of the 60s meant to you, especially the Black Panther's first appearance and Fantastic Four. So you already know the name John Romita from being of that comic book era. What was it like creating and adding to the Black Panther mythos with his son?
It was great. I was a giant fan of John Romita Sr. But once John Romita debuted and started quickly establishing his own extraordinary body of work at Marvel, I was like, look at this guy. I remember when he did the Armor War storyline in Iron Man. I was like, this dude is killing it.
Yeah.
And then he took on the ultimate challenge to follow in his dad's footsteps, drawing Spider-Man, right? And seeing, again, to my taste, how he beautifully combined what his father did with Jack Kirby, right? He had the style and elegance of his dad, but when he drew action, he would have the power of Kirby. And I was like, look at this dude. And you also saw that when he moved to Thor, when he moved around to different books, you just saw him, with his own style, stand alone and making his mark in book after book after book. So once we talked about me writing Black Panther initially as a miniseries, they said, well, who do you want to draw it? And I was like, John Romita Jr. And they're like, oh, well, John's really busy. And here's a list of other great artists. I'm like, yep, those are great artists. John Romita Jr. And I just wouldn't move off of it, like obsessively. And that was even more fired up because I had met John the year before at Comic-Con. And then when he was in LA, we sat down and chopped it up. And he is that rare thing. Like, how can you be that talented? How can you be that nice of a guy? And how can you draw as fast as you do, right? That combination is extraordinary. So I knew I really, really wanted him. So I just wore them down and they freed up John Romita for the first 6 issues. And I remember he had one question. He goes, okay, short or long cape? And I was like, oh, this is a tricky question. I was like, long cape. All right, cool. And then like a couple of weeks later, my fax machine kicked in and pages start coming through. And I was like, black and white faxes, doesn't matter. It was gorgeous. And his instinct in terms of costume design, production design, he just, a camera placement, he just brought the world to life. And who happened to be visiting the house that day was my wife's friend, who I guess, I don't know if she was DA or Attorney General at the time, but it was Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, Kamala, look at my comic book. And she was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So it's like, so she was there on the ground floor, guest starring in the Blerds Attic, like grooving on Black Panther. So she was down with the program from the jump.
That's a lot of Black history going on in that little story right there.
Yeah, you asked.
I mean, if you ever played the 6 Degrees of Separation game with Reggie Hudlin, you will lose.
Oh, you're not winning that game with Reg.
Single time. It's kind of, if I date myself by using the term Rolodex, his Rolodex is crazy. It's insane. But this is a blurred question, a truly blurred question. You've written scripts. You've directed numerous films. How hard is it to write a comic book script?
Each medium has different demands, right? When you write a feature script, you go, how do I hold the audience's attention for 2 hours, right? When you write an hour-long drama, how do you keep people watching, hanging on through commercial breaks, back in the day when there were commercial breaks, and how do you make sure they watch the next episode? With a half hour, that's that same issue cut in half. With a comic book, how do you make sure people pick up the book? Mm-hmm. How do you make sure they keep turning the page? Because they could just stop after page 3, like, whatever, next, right? So, and how do you write without music, without sound effects, and without acting like this? You see your friend, you go, so you can't head nod, right? So there's a lot of moves to the basket that you have in film and television that you don't have when you write a comic book, right? Mm-hmm. The advantage is you don't have to worry about casting. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about budget. You go, they go to the moon, next panel. So there are advantages and challenges to each medium, which is why I like switching each medium, because you go, oh, okay, now this arm is tied behind my back. Oh, but this one, this arm, so each has a challenge, but when you learn to overcome those challenges from platform to platform, you learn something.
Yeah. Well, one of the things really interesting was just how I loved, just as a reader, how every single issue felt like I was watching an episode of television, because it's a self-contained story that had serialization and character, even though every book had a different villain. Mm-hmm. And structurally was a huge influence on what I was trying to do with Luke Cage, which was building an arc, but at the same time, something happening in every episode that could be contained to that episode. And so as streaming got to a point where you had 12 and 13 episodes back in the day, that was the norm before we got to 8, it really kind of mirrored, the structure of issues, like, the 12, 13, issue. And so when people say, well, why'd you kill Cottonmouth? I mean, it's something I get on a weekly basis online. I wanted people to feel the way that I felt when Guardian and the original run of Alpha Flight exploded in that suit. I wanted people to feel like, when Craven, because this is the old days, when Craven's Last Hunt, when we felt that he actually killed Spider-Man, and then for 2 months you didn't see Peter Parker, and then you see him in the suit, and you really said, "Oh my God, did they really kill this dude?" And you really kind of felt that, it's hard to kind of be able to play with an audience's emotions anymore. And so do you find that there are advantages in terms of now things melding together in terms of comic book storytelling mirroring television, or should they stay separate, or is everybody trying too hard to bring comic book techniques to live action? Or
Well, the fact is that conversation between comics and movies has been going on for a very, very long time, right? When you look, I mean, what's great about comic books is that they're just shameless, right? They're like, what's hot? All right, we're going to do a comic book about what's hot. So James Bond was hot. Says, okay, we're going to pick Nick Fury and take him for World War II, put him in the modern day, and we're going to outbond Bond, right? And that first issue of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., when he's driving in the car and then a fighter pilot comes down and is strafing them, and the guy who's chauffeuring Nick says, don't worry, we're built by the same materials that they use for spaceships for astronauts. And then it says, and now we're going to start flying. And they have a dogfight. The dope-ass sports car is a dogfight with a fighter jet and wins. And they said, well, while we're here, we're going to go to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. And you're like, dude, again, comic books, bigger budget than even Bond, right? Mm-hmm. So, and look to the 70s. What was hot? Blaxploitation and Kung Fu. So all of a sudden you got Shang-Chi, Iron Fist, Luke Cage. So, and obviously, George Lucas. I mean, there's a whole generation of filmmakers who openly admit how much they were inspired by comic book work. And I know there's a panel that I always refer to. It was an early issue of, it wasn't even Captain America yet. He was in Tales of Suspense. He had half a book with Iron Man. He had not earned his own book yet. And the opening panel was a shot of Captain America. Like he's in the air and he's falling, right? So his arms and legs are spread out. And the caption says, no time to explain, true believer. You just got to turn the page. And I'm like, yes. Who cares how he got there? Who cares what happened? He's falling out of a plane. He doesn't have a parachute. He gonna die. But it's only page one. Presumably he will live for the rest of the issue. But how? So I'm always like, okay, can we start with that level of storytelling efficiency? Mm-hmm. That's always my bar.
So Reg, I want to ask. So, the two big stories I had with Reggie when I was at the Washington Post. The first one was when I was a young cub, and that was the announcement of Shuri. Or it wasn't revealed that it was Shuri back then, but just the announcement that there was going to be a female Black Panther. And the other big story I did with you was the return of Milestone at DC, and that was say around 2013, 14, 15, but it was a big story, and you were front and center because you were leading that initiative of the return. Milestone for me is so relevant because all three of us grew up reading comics. All three of us know the significance of the Black Panther and characters like Luke Cage. When I was a kid, all I did was draw Spider-Man and Batman. That's all. If I had a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, that's what I was doing. And I always had an aunt on my mother's side of the family, my African-American side of the family, who would say, why don't you draw some Black superheroes? And when you're 5 years old, all you want to do is draw Batman and Superman. But as I got older, I understood the significance of why she was saying that. And when I discovered Milestone in the early 90s, it was just one of those mind-blowing moments where you just see all the, with Dwayne and Dennis and everyone else and all the creativity, all the heroes. I've got my icon superhero right here. I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's Milestone. What was it like for you? Because, Milestone is kind of going through a resurgence now in DC with the Dakota incident. But what was it like for you to be the person to bring it back to DC and to see that it's still there?
Well, it was a long journey, man. It started actually when Milestone was founded. because the three people who really mentored me in comic books, to go from fan to really explaining how it works as a medium, introducing me to folks in the business, the editors and so on, were Dennis Cowan, Dwayne McDuffie, and Kyle Baker, right? Those were really my guides that would take me through conventions and introduce me to people. And I remember Kyle explaining the inherent weaknesses of word balloons. I mean, just like so, and panel placement. I mean, it was just like, again, I was so fortunate to learn comics from three masters of the medium, right? And Dennis and Dwayne invited me to join Milestone in its first incarnation. And I had just done House Party. I hadn't done Boomerang yet. And I was like, yo, yes, I love this. But I just made my first movie. I think before I started doing too much, maybe I should just kind of solidify that career. And then, so, a decision made, a decision questionable looking back, but that's what it was. And, being involved with the guys as, that the Milestone 1.0 ultimately shut down tragically, and me trying to be an intervening force with DC and Milestone, trying to revive the franchises again over the decades, right? I'm like, look, if you mad at him, don't talk to him, talk to me, and I'll talk to them. How can I be the in-between to bring this magic back, right? And I remember, when Dwayne wanted to leave comics altogether, and I was like, because he just, he just felt like he wasn't getting the love he certainly earned from the comic book industry. I said, okay, well, just move to LA. Come work here. You are a brilliant writer. You're a fast writer. You know genre. There's always a place for you here. And I was like, I don't know. I know. Just do what I'm telling you. And he moved out, and he never had a day without work in his life. Of course, he was writing all kinds of different animated shows, Justice League, Ben 10. I mean, writing animated feature films. He was enormously successful, and his sex had only just begun. He was going to be a giant, even bigger writer than he was, and he was already legendary.
Yeah.
So he passed away, which was crushing to all of us. And I was launching my own website that day, and he was supposed to come. And so it turned into this kind of impromptu memorial for him, and we talked about him. Everybody was there. And, it was just, so it was a celebration of comics, a celebration of him, was all these things. So then later, DC asked me if I would host the memorial they were putting together for Dwayne. I said, oh, I'd be honored. So there was that. And at the end of that, Derek Dingle and Dennis Cowan, who were the, two remaining of the Milestone founders, came to me and said, you know what? We wasted too many years of not having Milestone active. We want to revive it, and we want you to be involved. I said, of course. Absolutely. Thank you. What an honor. And took us a long time. First we had to kind of sort it out internally. Like, okay, well, what is Milestone today? Mm-hmm. Because Milestone was always about innovation. So we didn't want to be a nostalgia thing. Hey, let's go back to the 90s. It's like, no. How do we make the characters relevant to now? And what new characters do we need to create? So we just had to philosophically figure out what it should be. And then we had to figure out our relationship to DC. And, who has been 1,000% ally at every step of this has been Jim Lee, who always respected Milestone. I separately had a friendship with him. And, embrace the whole thing. And then it was the challenge of, well, how should we do our books and what's the format? And at the same time, DC was experimenting with a lot of different things. So it took a while till we finally started doing books. But when we started doing books, I thought they were very cool. And then, you started experimenting with things. So I said, well, there was a level of excitement from some of the amazing because in addition to bringing back some of our creative favorites, we wanted to do what Milestone did, which is to bring in new writers and new artists. So we had this thing called the Milestone Initiative, or we did a talent search all over the country. And so now we have new creative folks working in the industry in general, not just on Milestone books. And so, we did a Static Shock crossover with Batman Beyond with sort of adult Static, which was a huge hit. Really.
Yeah, that was dope. That was dope.
Perhaps we should do more of that. So then we talked about, okay, how are we going to cross in a bigger way Milestone into DCU? And I had a lot of concerns because it's very hard to bring in other companies into DC because typically those characters get shrunk down, right? Yeah. Whether you're Shazam or whether you're the Charlton Heroes, it's hard for them to have the same status as, the original iconography of DC. And I didn't want to have our characters be small in comparison. Mm-hmm. And nor do I want to change the tone of our characters, which were very different than DC. We were more rough, rugged, and raw, right? In the first issue of Icon and Rocket that I wrote, we did a flashback to him because he grows up, he's an alien who grows up on a slave plantation. His powers kick in. He frees everyone on the plantation. He tries to cut a deal with the neighboring plantations. Say, look, we won't invade your plantations if you don't try to mess with us. And if any black person makes it to our plantation, then they're free. Like, you got to stop them, right? And of course, they weren't having that. So they attack them. So Icon flies over to the Confederate capital, crashes in. The whole place explodes, bursts into flame. Then he walks out with the head of Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederacy. And so I said, you're not going to see that in an issue of Superman. Icon's a different kind of guy than that.
Yeah.
So we were very careful about doing the crossover that we just did, but fans love it.
The Dakota,
yeah, the Dakota incident, and I love that. It's
been a huge hit.
It's a huge hit, and I love that we have folks that came up through our program working on it. Beautiful art, great writing, and there's some exciting things planned for what will follow next. But it's us, figuring out new ways to broaden our audience, but maintain the integrity of what is Milestone.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to those characters. Shout out to Icon, Rocket, Static, Hardware, just iconic characters, iconic Black superheroes. And shout out to Dennis Cowan, who is now the artist on one of my favorite characters ever, Nightwing. That's a big deal. Having a brother draw Nightwing, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Dennis has been such a giant pioneer. I mean, he started, he just showed up. He figured out where Neil Adams' office was and just knocked on the door. And then when they answered, he just walked in and said, oh, okay, this is where it happens. Okay, so what am I doing? He just volunteered to start working there and started apprenticing under Neil Adams. And, he's done so much pioneering work in the business. And then he said, hey, we should have our own company. And, recruited his friends, calling Dwayne, calling Derek, and just going, yeah, we're going to do something called Milestone. It was just incredible.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is just so gratifying. Like, I remember when Luke Cage launched, and at the same time, around the same time, Black Lightning launched, and people would always try to like kind of pair the shows against each other. But, I got along really well and still get along really well with the Achilles, and we were cheering for each other's shows.
Right.
And it wasn't about which show was better or whatever else. For me, the fact that two superhero shows could exist at the same time that you have the rise of Black Panther as a feature film and all the things it was doing, in the Marvel universe, and, all these things happening, everything all at once, was really just such a gratifying things of, particularly having grown up where you didn't see any of that kind of representation, like with the exception of maybe Mantis, like in '94,
Right.
whenever that came out. So like, I really dig and identify what you were saying earlier about how you were happy with Ryan's success on Black Panther because it was good. And it also kind of reminds me of back in the day when I would run into you and John at Golden Apple. And it was just like to go from, dreaming one day of there being these things out to now, you having Milestone, you having directly done so many things within the Marvel universe at the same time, everybody's eating and things are happening. Like, again, the progress that you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember Black Panther was in development at Sony. And so I expressed interest, John expressed interest. And we were on the lot one day. We said, we both realized that each other wanted to do it. And John said, let the best man win. And we shook hands and we hugged. And it was sincere. It was like, hey, either you should do it or I should do it. And whoever gets it will be your biggest cheerleader, and that's the beauty of our era, because it really was, we knew our fates were tied together for better and for worse. And I always knew that Black science fiction would be the thing that took Black cinema to the next level, because science fiction doesn't require stars. So if you say, oh, well, those Black stars aren't big enough, it's like, it doesn't matter. The genre will carry us, right? And that's exactly what Black Panther did. It $1.6 billion box office, suddenly they open up theaters in Saudi Arabia so women can attend. Why? Because Black Panther is showing, right? That movie transformed culture on a global basis. I mean, that's why, we had that whole section in number one, the call sheet, about Chadwick, because you can't talk about the history of Black movie stars without acknowledging what Chadwick did.
Well, I mean, but also, man, good God, you got one brother who played Jackie Robinson, T'Challa, and as you directed him as Thurgood Marshall. I mean, wow. Like, what was he like?
Well, here's the thing. He could play those larger than life men because he was larger than life. I mean, he's the closest thing you're going to get to Sidney Poitier. He had an inherent nobility. That doesn't mean corny. He was funny. He was charming, but there were no silly conversations with him. If you see him, you're going to go to an emotionally deep place, an intellectually deep place, but you just want to be around him. If we ran into each other at a restaurant, he's with his people, I'm with my people, we would just be talking. And finally, like after 15, 20 minutes, we were like, oh, we're being rude to the rest of the group. But it was just like, he was just that. And I mean, my dream was, God, can I just every 3 or 4 years we can make a movie together? That'd be great. And I would just developing stuff that would be perfect for him and was fix his sensibility. And I mean, I know when we were doing press for Marshall, I was like, "What you know about Yasuke?" We had a deep conversation about Yasuke and fighting styles and that period in history, and I was like, so it was there was so. I mean, it's a loss that none of us have gotten over. None of us. We all walk around with a heavy heart, just missing him so much.
No doubt. I think that's probably a good, because I know that you got a lot of stuff that, you being you got a lot of plates spinning. And so thank you so much for blessing us, being our inaugural guest. And hopefully people will listen to this and say, hey, either they want to come on, or because you just dropped the mic so hard, they might be intimidated to not come on. So this could be you could be the first and last guest on the show. Grand opening, grand closing, but thank you so much.
You guys are irresistible personalities. You know your business. I'm fortunate enough to be the first of many guests you have.
And don't let it be the last time, man.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's always more things to talk about. Always.
Hey man, and anytime you're bored, like we'll just open up the door. Come on in, because this is just one big digital barbershop, comic book store, lobby. As we kind of say, we're just in line waiting to buy our bags and backs for our comics.
There we go. Loving it. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me, and have a great one.
Take care, Rich. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Gonna be hard to top that one.
It is. That was fun, man. It's just
just the institutional knowledge that he has from decades of being in Hollywood. Like you said, when you play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with him, just in terms of the people he's worked with, the people he's directed, people he's written for, it was funny hearing him talk about Chadwick and Marshall. And I remember that was something Reggie was one of the people I quoted in my reporting on Black Panther, in part because of, the impact he had creating characters like Shuri. And obviously he had worked with Chadwick before. And it was just like a trip down memory lane, hearing him talk about Chadwick like that.
Well, also, that's the thing, because when you watch number 1 on the call sheet, it's 2 parts. It's goes through all the different African American males, but then the second one also, with a separate director, goes through all the African American leading ladies. But the one thing that holds everything together is, as people have just experienced, and excuse the torrential rainfall outside.
Hey, you're on an island, man.
It's not a waterfall. But
stop flexing.
But the thing is, Reggie Hudlin calls you. You don't say no. You just say what time. Mm-hmm. He's got the level of personality of infectious, funny, cordial, respectful energy that because he had everybody. There was no pecking order. I'm not going to do this if so-and-so doesn't do this or any of that on either side, because Reggie said, hey, I'm doing this. And people just said, okay, I'm there. And, that's the thing is, as people have just witnessed, he is just such a great person, regardless of all the great things he's done. He's just such the brother's just so cool, man. I'm just happy. Every time, like, my phone rings, I see Reggie, I'm like, there's a smile on my face. Oh, it's Reg. Like,
It's so funny thinking about his, those early 90s success stories with Boomerang and House Party, because, as you know, so obviously in the early 90s, I'm like 10, 11, 12. But my parents were only 16 years older than me. So they're like, mid, late 20s. So Reggie's movies were right in the wheelhouse of what they wanted to see. I can still hear my mom laughing hysterically about scenes in Boomerang, and my father too. So it's that was kind of how I got introduced to his work, although I was too young to watch the movies at the time. But you always try and peep your head in a little bit when they're watching it on VHS. but yeah, he's such a great inaugural first guest for Blerds in the Attic, and I hope he comes back.
I mean, anytime someone's going to like say, oh, talking about hanging with Kyle Baker and talking about whether or not word balloons and the challenges of that's just a level of inside baseball, drop the mic, drop your receipts, who I say I am, kind of like nerd, damn, like, wow. That was
what a great Blerdy trio, man. If you're just looking at the three boxes with your face and Reg's face and my face, these are three brothers that have had impact on Luke Cage, on Black Panther, and on Miles Morales. That's a nice little trio right there.
No doubt, man. 3 the hard way. Here we go. You know what I'm saying? Like although I don't think we get the blaxploitation version of us. I guess that's a comedy pitch. It's like three Blerds out trying to solve crime. Although I think I'm trying to think if probably I try to get Omar Epps to play me, but I guess we got to because our man could play you.
I would either want Khalil Kane just to tick off my girlfriend from college because she loved that man.
Revenge.
Or the brother who was a sergeant on Saved by the Bell. I can't remember his name, but he was also on White Men Can't Jump.
Mm-hmm. I personally was thinking it was going to be Laz Alonso because Laz is we worked together on Southland. He's such a good brother. Laz is good people.
Cubano, and he's doing big things on The Boys, which is about to wrap up.
Yeah,
he's had a great run on there. But yeah, I'm comfortable with whoever you want to cast for me. That's fine.
All right, so what we got to use? We got to use this clip and hopefully get Laz as one of our guests, man, and Omar.
There we go.
Yeah. So let's blurt it down because we've got a little more time. So let's kind of get into things. I think we can talk both about separately. First, let's get into the Dune trailer. What was your reaction to that? It was visually, I was like, wow.
Visually spectacular, sounded spectacular. It's funny because Dune, and a lot of the kiddos don't know this, but Dune is what inspired Star Wars. There's a reason Tatooine is a desert planet, and there are a lot of kiddos that don't know that. And I am more of a Star Wars person than a Dune person. But these movies always look, feel, and sound so incredible. Whenever I'm introduced to them through a trailer for the first time, this is the third one, I'm always like, yeah, I'm going to end up seeing that. Yeah. And that's a real powerful tool when you can drop. Obviously, it's star-studded. I mean, everyone's in this thing. But I was hyped. It's going to be. I'm loving the staring contest between Dune and Avengers Doomsday. Because if I drop a trailer as hot as they just dropped the other day for Dune, I'm saying I'm not going anywhere. I'm not budging. If you want to come out in December too, we'll be right here waiting for you.
And I think that's going to happen. And I think what's interesting, I don't think either movie, sight unseen for the Avengers so far, I don't think either movie should change. Again, if this is going to be the Sinners versus one battle after another, if both those movies drop on the same day, I'm sorry, I'm just taking the day off. Or I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to go to the 11:30 midnight screening of one, and then stay up and then go to 2 to 5 for the other. It's just going to happen. If you want to talk about a different kind of Barbenheimer kind of experience, they might as well do it. And then what's interesting, of course, is if you just even thinking about the trailer for the new Dune movie comparing to Spider-Man Brand New Day, the one, conduit is, of course, Zendaya, because she's clearly going to be really the most dynamic force in Dune 3, particularly since, if you know anything about the books, Shyamalan is about to take a kind of a villain turn. He's going to be doing some things that are not necessarily quote unquote heroic. And you have the one person who can remind him of who he is or who he's supposed to be in terms of Zendaya, in terms of, the things that her character is, that what that arc is going to be. And then on the flip side, it's really interesting looking at that Brand New Day trailer. Like, not only just how it's just so geeky. There's so many different
There's
comic book, like,
so much. It's comic book. It's the Saturday morning cartoon. It's got everything in there.
yeah, no, I mean, it's just like literally like just you have the hand, you have, him telling, Frank Castle to go home because it's like, I'm a vigilante,
And,
you're a
and webbing
vigilante,
him
but
up,
I'm a
webbing him
professional
up,
vigilante. So,
webbing him up before he could get the F-bomb out. That was
yeah,
hilarious.
I mean, you've got that element. I mean, and then also, Destin, as a director, he's coming up with angles we've never seen. That shot inside the mask as he's looking down, as he's,
Everyone is talking about this.
woo,
Because think about it. How many Spider? Okay, so Toby had 3 movies. Andrew had 2 movies. Tom has already had 3 movies. We've had a lot of Spider-Man movies, and we have never seen that perspective. He's diving. He's about to start web swinging, and you're just getting this personal inside look underneath the mask. You can kind of see the lens
Mhm.
hovering over his eye. That was a spectacular shot.
Well, not just that, he caught emotional performance. Because when you look at his face, Tom, and this is again a testament to Tom Holland as an actor, you saw that he's just like, I'm Spider-Man, but I'm over this shit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sad because
Which is a very Spider-Man thing to do.
Yeah, even though I'm doing these things, the people that I love don't remember who I am. And then, although I have to admit, I'm sick of the multiverse. And the reason I'm sick of the multiverse is because, yes, it was a great gimmick to kind of, this is just inside baseball from a writing standpoint. It allows you to recast at will. It allows you to kind of do things. It allows you to have characters that that you've established as heroes, bring them back as villains, all kinds of things. And it make comic book sense because now through this medium, that we have as the internet, people really will complain if you're not true to the character arcs of the comics and all that stuff. And so the multiverse solves all ills because you can really address all those things. But the problem is with every single film being connected to the multiverse.
But how multiversy is this film going to be?
Well, I think this is just me looking at the structure of the trailer. Like, if he's beginning to manifest as Man Spider, like, is it reversible? Or are we going to end up with an Easter egg that nobody really responded well to in the Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange movie, where Doctor Strange literally has an actual third eye, not just, or, we could probably geek out just even, I'm still pissed about Mjolnir, like, being destroyed so quickly, because just when it was working perfectly, like it looked like it always did in my head when I would read Thor, and with Led Zeppelin's playing and he's, in Ragnarok and he's swinging Mjolnir and it looks exactly like the comic and you're like, they finally got it right. And then of course, 15 minutes later it gets destroyed. And then Love and Thunder, it's like we can go back and forth as to whether or not that was effective. Like, it just didn't feel the same. Bringing, the new thing that got forged in the other Avengers movie that is not as Mjolnir. There was meaning, there was soul to that weapon, and so it's like, without getting too, messed up about it. Like, it's sometimes it's that kind of stuff. Like, you introduce stuff, are you really going to pay it off? I don't know. Like, even
I'm over it too.
Yeah,
I'm over it too. I don't think they'll lean too heavy into it. I think a lot of the characters we're seeing here, from Bruce Banner to Frank Castle's Punisher, I don't think they're going to be multiversal. I think they're just people that are always have been there. Obviously now, because of acquisitions from Disney, these characters can appear. Hulk will always be a universal thing, but Ruffalo can appear because it's not his movie. So I think there are things that work. But you and I were not the only people to watch the Spider-Man trailer. This thing got over 700 million views.
What?
In 20 that's what they're 718.6 million views in 24 hours.
Okay, so this is also attesting to the brilliance, and I'll give this to Destin. like, and I'm biased because I believe he's he grew up in Hawaii, so he's Hawaiian. So it's a local bias just because I'm by no means Hawaiian, but there is definitely a certain pride of people being here and what it
Oh,
means
for
to the
sure.
rest of the world. But he had a worldwide perspectives because if you look at what he did on Instagram, giving little pieces of the trailer to kids of all different hues around the world so that people are forced to go to their pages. What did it do? It just upped the worldwide interest in watching this movie because as as I always say, culture is the cheapest special effect. So
Yeah.
you have pieces of that all around the world. So you get those world views and those eyes. Everyone's saying, okay, because what were some of those clips that you saw on Instagram? It's like these little kids of all colors that love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is me. So you're appealing to all these a new generation of Spider-Man fan. And then you drop that trailer. That trailer of any trailer post Endgame is the best like Marvel related trailer I've seen, hands down.
So good, so good. Have you seen? So there's that scene. First of all, the hand is in this movie. My
The
God,
hand,
which is so cool because don't forget Wilson Fisk is the mayor of New York right now, or at least he is in the upcoming season of Daredevil, Born Again, which is about to drop on Disney Plus next week. But there are a lot of people. So remember in Spider-Man: No Way Home,
Mhm.
when in the trailer there's that scene where Spider-Man is jumping towards all the villains, Sandman, Electro, all that. But in the trailer, it's just Tom Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then everyone was speculating that the other two Spider-Men were probably there. They just digitally removed them, which we now know that they did. So now a lot of folks are saying with that shot of Spider-Man going up against all the hand ninjas, a lot of people are looking at all that empty spaces saying, is the Hulk in there? Is the Punisher in there? Is Daredevil in there? Charlie Cox has already said, I'm not in this movie. But he also said that in the last Spider-Man movie.
Well, I mean, come on. I mean, like the the best denial of all was Andrew saying, I love you guys as fans, but I'm not in this movie. Then like I went crazy when it was basically the locker room door opened up and Larry Bird walked in. To extend that metaphor, my favorite sports metaphor of all time was the that rant from Rick Pitino. He's like, Larry Bird's not coming out of that locker room.
I
Kevin
walk
Smith's not
in.
coming out of that locker room, and then boom, when that Spider-Man door opened, and Larry Bird, that I I lost it. It was one of the best theater moments since, of course, On Your Left and Avengers Assemble. It was
So
great.
that's crazy. That's the crazy thing. This movie is already jam packed. You've got Spider-Man, you've got the Punisher, you've got the Hulk, you've potentially got Jean Grey. Although I've seen some theories online that
Yeah.
the young actress that a lot of people think is going to be Jean is not going to be Jean. So that's a kind of wait and see thing. But to potentially have even more,
Mhm.
it's going to be amazing to see how they fit all that into a couple of hours.
What's the thing? Like, okay, say for example, that is Jean Grey. What's interesting about that is if you get a Jean Grey who's using her mental powers to manipulate people, you are already basically throwing out years of X-Men canon and rebooting it in a way that's interesting in terms of, okay, how are they going to introduce this new generation of X-Men? And, like, what if she is more like Emma Frost? Like, what happens when you start to mess with these things? And it gets really interesting. And I think this is kind of a perfect way for us to segue into talking about Lanterns. Because the Lanterns trailer was interesting. I really dug it. I think
I did too.
I think from an HBO standpoint, from a show standpoint, from a comic book superhero standpoint, and of course my bias because I'm friends with Damon Lindelof. Like I I really want to see what happens because I think that it's grounded in a way that is really interesting. The same way that his interpretation of with Cord Jefferson and other incredible folks of Watchmen was also grounded in ways that you couldn't have anticipated. But the internet being the internet, controversy being controversy, as cool as it was, it's
My
interesting.
God, are people mad about this?
Yes,
Man,
some people were angry, saying, "Hey, it just looks like Taylor Sheridan, like Yellowstone, like green stuff." So there was some of that stuff, and
Green
yet,
Land.
I thought that was interesting. But they were really pissed about the fact that they're calling it lanterns,
Furious. Yeah.
not Green Lanterns, and are they dishing the suit? Are they disrespecting the suit?
People
And
were pissed that the suit was just hanging in the closet, that it wasn't like generated from the ring. I
yeah,
mean,
and at the same time, they were also pissed at Damon for making the joke that he made about
now Damon
getting rid of the
has,
green.
I'm sure you've already seen, Damon has since responded to the uproar of his comments. Basically, for those that don't know, Damon Lindelof, who's a producer on this show, also the brilliant mind behind HBO's Watchmen, which is one of my favorite DC things ever. He was on a comedy podcast, and he said, we took out the word green because it was silly and stupid, and he's kind of joking around himself because it's a comedy podcast. But the comic book loving community, specifically Green Lantern fans, let's face it, Green Lantern is an intergalactic comic book. Green Lantern is a comic that over the course of its existence at DC Comics rarely takes place on Earth. Not saying it doesn't all the time, but a lot of times these dudes are in space, doing the Green Lantern thing with the power ring. So Damon got a lot of flack. Even Grant Morrison chimed in. Did you
Yeah,
see that?
yeah. But
Oh man! So and then that Grant being one of Damon's favorite people, Damon has since come out. He's apologized, and I think what they're trying to say, first of all, as comic book fans, you gotta have a little patience. To think you're gonna get in a teaser trailer like all the Green Lantern CGI that is likely in this show
Mhm.
is just silly. But also, you have to be patient. If this show is full of Hal Jordan and John Stewart lighting up their power rings and kicking major butt with their Green Lantern rings, that's something that we as a viewer need to earn. We don't
well,
have to be spoiled by that right away.
well, and this is and you've seen some of the things the battles I've fought on Twitter. Because I have a sense of humor about it, I kind of find it funny because everybody thinks if they had a keyboard, they can run a show and they can handle all the different notes and all the different opinions and having to make a decision about some of these things and budget and all that kind of stuff. But it's something that I experienced first as a journalist when I was writing for Premiere Magazine. And I was actually, wrote the first profiles of Bryan Singer and Hugh Jackman. And I did this cover stories for the X-Men movies, for the first one that was shot in Toronto and then the second one that was shot in Vancouver. And the first one, it was the early days of the internet where everybody went to Ain't It Cool News, and there was a controversy because the first pictures of the suits leaked, and as we know from those first X-Men movies, everybody's in black, and they were just really, people were still smarting from nipples on the bat suit, which was a thing back in the day. We want to talk about quote unquote controversies.
If you know,
and
you know.
People were saying that it wasn't comic book accurate, that's what was why one of my favorite moments of Deadpool was when they had comic book accurate Wolverine. When they had him in the suit and the size he really is supposed to be, because there was also this huge thing, believe it or not, where people said Hugh Jackman is way too tall to be Wolverine and all these other things. But I think sometimes as a creator, it just depends honestly on the title. I could take a lot more liberties with Luke Cage, I realized, because, I didn't have a antagonist as iconic as Kingpin did for Daredevil, or as, for Jessica Jones, Kilgrave, Purple Man was. It gave me, the opportunity to do things with Cottonmouth and with Mariah that the comic books didn't necessarily do. But then at the same time, also, here's the thing: was characters like for example, I want to say not just Bushmaster, which has its own controversies, even though people really kind of dig that element of season 2. Really, it was just kind of the opportunity to not. You're trying to change things up. You're trying to really maintain the spirit of the comics, but how do you introduce the tiara? How do you introduce the yellow shirt and the chains on the belt? There are so many different ways you can try to be respectful of the source material, but then there are also things where you're trying to, you know, also go in different directions. And then also certain things happen that you have no control over. Like this kind of to spoil some of the things for Luke Cage. Everyone was kind of mad about like, why did I change Luke's origin in terms of Kim and Diamondback not being part of the rivals and all that kind of stuff. Well, I had to come up with something different when Jessica Jones, which came before our show, killed off Reva. And like I didn't have any control over that. And so I had to come up with a completely different backstory because that part of the canon was already taken before I had a chance to even write a pilot. And you just try to adjust in certain ways. Some people get really angry. Some people understand what you're trying to do. So, but I think the thing is while I understand why Lantern fans are really angry about certain things, I hope that they give him the benefit of the doubt, because I think the show itself looks like it could be really interesting. You know,
after Watchmen, and I was one of the most skeptical people about Watchmen when it came out. A show dealing with white supremacy and racism and reparations, and the showrunner isn't black. I was very skeptical. And Regina King she's like, you know what, David, you're gonna have to trust me. And she was right. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, Damon has earned the benefit of the doubt. I will wait and see until I've seen everything. Look, at the end of the day, can you have a show about the Green Lantern Corps? Can it be grounded? Yes. Can it be grounded without hardly any use of the rings? Absolutely not. So at some point, we're going to get the rings. We're going to get the suits. You've got Aaron Pierre. He's going to look fantastic whenever he gets suited up as John Stewart. I think people want to see the suits. They want to see their eyes glowing green. They want to see the constructs that are built from their willpower, from the rings. I get all that stuff. I think we'll get all that. But I also think we're going to get some damn good television along the way, because at the end of the day, this is the home of The Sopranos. This is the home of Sex and the City. This is HBO. So I have faith that this is going to be very good.
Yeah, agreed. And I think one of the things that's really so dynamic in this new era of comic book storytelling as it pertains to television, as it pertains to feature films, is that there's a certain maturity now that people, as long as you're kind of capturing the spirit. And I think the show, in an irreverent way, will kind of capture the spirit of, the possibilities of the medium. And so I'm hopeful that the show sticks the landing. I really dug the trailer.
I did too.
And like you, I'm also going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I really want to see it and see what happens with it.
And I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, especially the run of Jeff Johns in the 2010s, dealing with the different colors of the emotional spectrum, and having green lanterns and black lanterns and orange lanterns and yellow lanterns, blue lanterns, all that. I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. But I think we'll be fine. But I think we just need to be patient. I am, however, very interested to see, because everyone at DC Studios has seen and read and heard this fan reaction. This show doesn't debut until August. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely going to get one more trailer. I'm very interested to see how much green is in that trailer, given the uproar for this one.
Yeah, it's hard, because it's like, do you basically stick to your guns and keep going down this path, or do you react? And because the crazy thing is like, if you react, sometimes people resent the fact that you so reacted to them.
Right, that you showed your hand.
It's just it's hard. There are a lot of things about this business. There are a lot of things about trying to anticipate what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what you should react to, what's going to blow over. That can be really difficult. So I think it's going to be interesting to see ultimately how things play out. But the one thing that HBO does extremely well is market shows. And I think that as long as they say, as long as they spell your name right, sometimes controversy is good, because then everyone's going to tune in. Not that. I mean, I'm thinking about that, but then I just can't get that number out of my head. 700 million people saw that Spider-Man trailer.
Half of that is Zendaya's Instagram followers. she's got a huge social media following, but so obviously I think that's a small percentage. Like you said, they did a great job with the international release of this. But yeah, Those are some big numbers.
Yeah, those numbers are going to be really, it's going to be interesting to see what translates. I mean, I think that level of interest for anything comic book related bodes well for it'll raise all boats. I think it bodes well for people's hunger for the Avengers. I think it bodes well certainly for Spider-Man, but I also think it bodes well for Lanterns because of the fact that you have the genre is not, people were trying to kill the genre off. The genre is clearly not dead. And just in terms of comic books, people and interest. It's not the genre that's the problem. It's does the content live up to our scrutiny? And I think that when you come with stuff that's actually good, people will show up. And I think this is also a lesson to Marvel. Like, I mean, you know, I'm not, yeah, maybe I will bite the hand that fed me in the past. Like, you know, you got to come with it. You know, Daredevil proved that. Like, you know, when they did Daredevil Born Again, and it kind of felt more like the spirit of the Netflix stuff, people responded well to that. And, you know, that's the thing. It's like, it just really is going to be interesting to see who else gets reintroduced through that show. I don't know, you know, some people, I know the other question is, you know, is Luke going to show up? Is
He's been chatting about it.
I mean, I can't control what Mike does and doesn't do. I don't really know, but at the same time, you know, I know Mike is excited as everybody else as a fan that Jessica is back and that you know, Daredevil's getting the second, now third season. Because regardless of whether or not he shows up in this season or something else happens, it's the possibility is out there, and I think that it's a good possibility from a positive direction that like the universe that we were a part of is now going to be fully integrated into the Marvel MCU in a real way. So hope springs eternal.
Might happen. Might happen.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that's pretty much it, man. What else are you thinking? I mean, it's kind of hard to top Reggie Hudlin, man.
Hard to top Reggie. Notice this. We had the Lanterns controversy. We had a Dune trailer. We had a Spider-Man trailer.
Yo, what happened? Oh, I'm back. That's weird.
That's okay. I was saying we had Dune, Spider-Man, Daredevil's coming back, and we still led with Reg first. So I think we handled the order of things the right way today. 2026 is shaping up to be a great year for comic book culture. It's shaping to be a great year for Marvel, and hopefully, it's shaping up to be a great year for theaters.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big stuff coming out that I'm really excited about. You know, anytime anything new about the Michael movie comes out, I've been diving into that. They've been releasing their little kind of like behind the scenes stuff every now and then. So gearing up for that. I think He-Man's going to be huge. You know, we have a lot of stuff that we can talk about on this podcast, and I'm looking forward to it.
2026 is shaping to be an incredible year. And also just when you've got that many views and all these things are happening all at once, I think it just shows that, you know, despite other movies having come out before that haven't performed as well, that audience they just want, you know, quality, and they want something that really is compelling and different. And that's what the Brand New Day trailer promises. That's what I think Lanterns, even though it's different, I think that difference, if they stick the landing, is going to work, and that people will stop complaining because, you know, all those things that they want, the green, I think that these kinds of things will unfurl. And, you know, whether it's the use of the traditional uniforms, whether it's the cosmic element, I think those things will, you know, slowly but surely unfurl. I haven't had a chance to watch Invincible yet, but have you watched any of the new episodes? I think they just dropped like
not yet, but I need to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, that show is earned as 100% Rotten Tomatoes, and it's always excellent. My only complaint about the show is that they just drop it. It's almost like a Beyonce and Tyler record. They just drop when they drop. You never get any warning. It just shows up. You can't really.
And you got to try and catch up.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm hoping that, you know, they roll them out more regularly. It takes a long time with animation, particularly at that level of animation. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think it's going to be a very interesting Blerdy summer that's coming up. I mean, when does do we know when Spider-Man drops?
Spider-Man is in July. Let's see.
Oh man, it's a long time to wait. I wish it was earlier.
July 31st, end of July.
All right, so we have that, and then July we've got Michael Jackson coming up in a month.
That's cool. We got Michael in April. We've got He-Man at the beginning of June. So we got some stuff to help us out till we get there.
Yeah, but then once you get into July, once you get into Spider-Man, which they're going to drop the trailer of all trailers with that one. They have to for Avengers at that point. And so we can actually see what that thing really is. And hopefully they blow our minds.
That's probably exactly when we're going to get the Avengers trailer finally, is with Spider-Man.
Yeah. And so I think that'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. I don't think Dune's moving its date. I think they got Shyamalan, they got Zendaya, they got the visuals. I think
it's Dune, Avengers. Let's have another Barbenheimer,
Yeah, I mean, because they know the audience. We're gonna see both at the same time.
I'll see both the same day.
Hands down. I mean, it'd be 6 hours of my life, but like, I'm down. It'd be great.
Dune and Avengers, it might be 8 hours of your life.
That's true. It might be the whole bloody affair, 2.0. Have you had a chance to watch that yet?
Not yet, no.
Oh, no. It's great. It's great. My only beef is that I wish that they had included the cut Michael Jai White scene into the flow of the recut. But watching the House of Blue Leaves sequence with, of course, where the big fight between Uma Thurman and all the crazy 88, seeing that in color, wow, it's definitely hits different,
Speaking of color, we could talk about this on the next cast, but we have to talk about Spider-Man Noir and our boy Nick Cage.
Yeah, true.
We'll save that for the next. We're wrapping up now, but I have some thoughts about that. I was pleasantly surprised with that trailer.
Yeah, great trailer. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. And I still haven't seen Hail Mary yet, so by the time we talk again, we'll have seen Hail Mary.
Oh, me and my daughter saw Project Hail Mary at the press screening here in DC. She loved it. Loved it.
That's great.
A lot of heart that movie has. A lot of heart.
Yeah. Great trailers. I mean, great filmmakers. So I have high hopes. And I think that's all we got right now. Again, Blerds in the Attic. I cannot believe that I got through a whole cast with no profanity this time.
It must be the Reggie effect. That must be it.
It's a banner day. And I'm so tempted to drop one, but I'm not going to. But I just want to thank everybody for bearing with us, listening to us, and at the same time, thank yet again Reggie Hudlin. That was such a great appearance. And then I'm glad we're back, and I promise that we'll be back more regularly. And Blerds in the Attic.
And thank you to everyone who's been asking about the cast. I did at the beginning of the World Baseball Classic, I did a news hit on the local news station here. And one of the things they asked at the end is like, hey, when's the next Blerds in the Attic podcast? So, people are listening and we appreciate it.
No, we appreciate it. But also in asking that, because here's the thing with David and I, we're going to have these conversations anyway. Even if we didn't have the podcast, we would be talking to each other about these exact same stuff. So any feedback that you have, whether it's, subscribing to us on TikTok, whether it's, hitting us up on our Twitter page, both the Blerds in the Attic Twitter profile or us individually, any feedback that we get is helpful to us because we want this show to be as interactive and as interesting to you guys because you guys keep us going. And we really want to expand this thing. And hopefully this will be the beginning of us, getting more people on. And it's a new day for us. It's a brand new day for us. No
brand new day. Let's get 700 million views.
Oh, could you imagine? Oh my God. That'd be crazy. And with that, I'm Cheo Hodari Coker.
And I'm David Betancourt.
And together we are Blerds in the Attic. Thank you again. And we'll see you again soon.
Nos vemos.
Peace. Adios.